Our movie starts with a man named David hearing his wife's voice telling him it's over before she leaves him for another man. The scene is set in a dystopian future in what is likely Ireland, where everyone must have a partner or they would be turned into an animal. David makes the decision to join the authority in order to locate a new companion. David is led to a hotel where he must check in with a partner. When David checks into the hotel, it is revealed that single people have 45 days to find a partner or they will be converted into an animal. David is accompanied by his brother, who has been turned into a dog because he could not find a partner. When David peeks out the window, he notices a large number of single people who have taken tranquilizers after trying to flee and find a companion in the woods. The hotel manager informs single guests that they have 45 days to find a mate in order to avoid being changed into the animal of their choosing. He then instructs them to choose a companion that is the same kind of animal as they are. She goes on to ask him what animal he would like to transform into if he were to end up alone, and David replies that he would like to become a lobster. The next morning, David meets other singles for breakfast, and while there, he notices some of the ladies who may have certain traits as him. David makes friends with two men. Later, during an assembly, Robert, who speaks with a lisp, and John, who walks with a limp, are called up to speak because they realized he walks with a limp and needs to find a partner same as him, which is also his defining characteristic. Throughout their stay, the singles attend dances to meet one another, including David, who tries to find his partner by knowing each other. Robert and John eat the next day. They are also given extra time by going on hunts and finding the loners in the woods. The singles can extend their deadline by hunting and tranquilizing the single people who live in the woods. Each captured loner earns them a day. The loners that have been tranquilized will bring back to the hotel where they will be transformed into an animal. To keep their requirements, the singles successfully caught each loner except David. However, the hotel regulation indicates that the males can only obtain modest stimulation without orgasm from the maid. When the hotel manager discovers that Robert was repeatedly masturbating, she forces him to have his fingers burned in a toaster as punishment. At night, John tells them a story about how they transformed into an animal. His uncle knows one of their waitresses who worked there. He said they will catch you and throw you into a pot of boiling water until you die, and then they will crack open your claws with pliers and suck out what little flesh you have with their mouths, and the next process will be dependent on how the animal of their choice. While this is going on, John approaches the nosebleed woman, pretending to have a problem with his nose by hitting his face against something, and lying to her to get a matching partner. Eventually, they fall in love and are relocated to a larger room just for the two of them. After that, they will travel to the city as a couple. David still has 7 days to find a spouse, but he is still unable to do so. When a woman failed to find a mate, the hotel management turned her into the animal of her choosing, a horse. Then they take her to the forest. When David realized he was running out of time, he approached the heartless woman and made snide remarks about the biscuit woman's death, implying that because of her cold and heartless personality, she was the best hunter. He later joins her in a jacuzzi where she pretends to choke on an olive to put him to the test. When she notices that he makes no move to aid her, she determines they are a match and the two are shifted to the couple's suite. When she finally aroused him, David must continue to pretend to be as callous as she is and ends up making. One morning, the callous woman informs David that she repeatedly kicked his brother to death and that she had blood on her leg. When David discovers the dead dog in the bathroom, he breaks down in tears and the cruel woman slaps him for lying while seeming unmoved and saying it doesn't matter. She proceeds to inform the hotel manager, but with the assistance of the maid. David sedates the heartless woman and drags her into the transformation chamber to be transformed into an unknown animal. He then sedates the maid so that the hotel does not suspect her. David departs the hotel and enters the woods, where he encounters a gang of loners, a rebel group opposed to the establishment. The lonely leader greets David but informs him that any romantic or sexual interaction is forbidden and penalized, which contradicts the hotel policy. David notices a man with bandages on his mouth and is told that the man was given the red kiss in which his lips were severed, along with another woman who suffered the same fate, and they were forced to kiss each other. Loners, who is also short-sighted as David and finds herself attracted to him. One day, Robert, who wants to shoot him and take him back to the hotel, runs into David. David convinces Robert to live with him in the woods instead, where he can freely talk and masturbate. But when the short-sighted woman knocks him out, it is revealed that the maid is working with the loner leader and gathering information from the hotel. The loners make weekly journeys into the city while posing as a couple. When they return to the woods, they are given secret missions to the adjacent metropolis. David has been spending time with the short-sighted woman. They fall in love and start a secret relationship. The loners then launch a raid to sabotage the hotel, and the lone leader explains the plan to all of them with the help of the hotel mate, who will allow them to enter the building without difficulty. The lone leader enters the hotel manager's and her husband's room, holds the manager at gunpoint, and demands the manager's husband confess his love for her in exchange for a gun with which to shoot her. The husband pulls the trigger, but the pistol is empty. The loners leave the two alone, and she has demonstrated that they are not in love. Meanwhile, David joins a boat that John and his new family are on. He attempts to break them up, but none of them wants to hear what he has to say, so he departs the yacht as their connection becomes stronger by the day. They devise a nonverbal language to communicate so that the loners do not suspect them, despite the fact that the loner leader realizes how close David and the short-sighted lady have grown. They both realize they must take action to leave the gang, and they decide to flee together to the city. Unfortunately, one of the loners read about the woman's plan to flee with David into the city after finding the woman's notebook. She tells the lone leader about it, and a few days later, the leader takes the short-sighted person to the city for a procedure that is supposed to correct her short-sightedness. But upon returning to the woods, the leader blinds the woman instead. She realizes she is blind and tries to kill the loner leader with a knife, but she accidentally stabs the maid and leaves her to die. The loner leader finally forgives her because she no longer resembles David. At first, she lies about her condition and acts normally, but she eventually tells David about what the loner leader did to her. He feels disturbed but decides to stay with her since she is frightened he will leave her when they no longer have a match. He assists her with her other senses of touch and scent, as well as teaching her another language. David has tried to find something else they have in common but to no effect. He insists on not leaving her and adheres to his plan of killing the lone leader and fleeing to the city. Later, David tackles the lone leader and binds her up before throwing her in an open grave and leaving her to the mercy of some wild wolves. As this occurs, David and the short-sighted woman flee toward the city. This is how our movie ends. Tell us in the comments how you felt about this movie recap. See you in the following movie recap.